Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to Being a Guest. Today we have, right from here in Upton, Gary Bohan, and he is an author. Welcome, Gary.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
He wrote the cutest book. It's called Sharkey, When Sea Lions Were Stars of Show Business, 1907 to 1958. Who is the actress? Do you know with Sharkey?
I have no idea who that actress is. It was a press photo from the 1940s,
Yeah.
and the actress was unidentified.
We were trying to figure it out. Was it, who did I think it was? I forgot the name, but he's playing cards. I've got more pages in here. First of all, what got you to write this book?
Well, Sharkey, who's the main character in the book, who's a very famous trained seal, was trained by my great-grandfather.
His last name was?
Hewling.
Okay.
So his last name was Hewling, his name was Mark Hewling,
Yeah.
and really that was the inspiration for me to write the book.
So that's how you got.
That's how.
So you met him.
No, he actually died before I was born. Mark Hewling did.
Yeah.
But one of his assistants was his son-in-law, my grandfather, whom I did meet. But interestingly enough, now he died when I was 10 years old, 10 or 11, and he never ever talked about the seals ever.
Why?
And I think it just wasn't a big deal, a big remembrance. And my dad, who's still alive, all throughout my childhood and into my adulthood, he really very, very rarely
Yeah.
talked about the seals, which are really California sea lions,
Yeah.
though they're often called seals. But no, the topic just really wasn't brought up very much, and it was only until very recently. I mean, I knew they had trained seals,
Right.
and this, that, and the other thing. Really didn't think too much about it. And then a podcast came out in 2016
Yeah.
about Sharkey,
Yeah.
and I listened to that podcast, and I needed to know.
Yeah.
I needed to know more. I needed to know everything, and before long, I started writing this book.
There wasn't any paperwork your great grandfather left around or anything like that.
No, he had a 16-page promotional brochure
Right.
that had some of his writings, and there was a lot of stories about him and his trained seals over the years. So his career spanned decades, and there was a lot of footage, a lot of newsreel footage, some television footage, so a lot of magazine articles. So it was a matter of cobbling together all of that stuff.
Where did you get all these wonderful photos?
Right. Well, some I got from my family,
Yeah.
and I had never seen any of these pictures. I hadn't seen any of these pictures growing up, and my dad found some, and one of my uncles,
Yeah.
he went into his attic, and there was an old box of pictures.
There's just a box there.
Just a box, and so as people came to know I was doing this book,
Yeah.
I got a lot of pictures that way, and I got a lot of pictures from curators, from museums, from libraries, and
And they wanted to cooperate too.
they were, it's such a nice community of people, librarians and museum curators, and I had so much help along the way.
What's that one in Worcester? The Antiquarian Society.
Yeah, now I didn't use them for any resources, but I did go to New York City, to the
Yeah.
New York Public Library.
That would have it. Yeah.
That was amazing.
Sharkey was even on Ed Sullivan. I was a little kid, grew up with Ed Sullivan. I don't remember Sharkey being on it, but
Yes.
there's a picture in here with Ed Sullivan.
Yeah, so Sharkey was on the Ed Sullivan Show 5 times. Yeah.
Huh. Funny, I don't remember it when I was little like that. My parents were always watching that Sunday night, right?
Sunday
First
night.
Lawrence Welk and then Ed
Right.
Sullivan.
Sunday night at 8 o'clock. It was right for baby boomers. It was must-see family TV.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Now, Sharkey, he was on Sullivan from 1949 through 56.
Yeah.
So he was on the earlier years of the Ed Sullivan Show.
That's probably why I don't remember it, because, our generation is huge, and I might not have been paying attention in 1956, I was too little. Okay, this really got me. Sharkey was at Woodstock? When
Well-
did I not hear this?
well, not the Woodstock.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a play on words. That subchapter, Sharkey at Woodstock.
Yeah.
So he wasn't at the 1969 Music Festival.
Yeah.
The play on words, though, is he did get discovered in Woodstock, New York, which was right next to my hometown of Kingston, New York, which is where Sharkey was trained. And so it was at Woodstock, New York, where Sharkey was discovered at a small library fair that continues to this day. It would have been something like the Upton Town Library would have, just something very small and informal. And Sharkey gave his first performance outside of his training facility at
Right there.
right there at that fair. And wouldn't you know that a Broadway playwright, Gladys Hurlbut, was in the audience.
Yeah.
And within weeks, she got Sharkey involved in a Broadway play, of all things.
I love seals. But you told me are they sea lions first and then become seals?
Well, they're California sea lions. So when you think of a trained seal, as we think of trained seals, more often than not, I'd say with very few exceptions, a trained seal is really a trained California sea lion.
Now he had a long life. What was he, 30, 50?
Well, he was, the book encompasses from 1907 to 1958, but Sharkey comes onto the scene part way through during that era in 1938.
Yeah.
So, but before Sharkey comes onto the scene, there's a whole history leading up to it. So, which I get into in the book.
Oh, yeah. This Sharkey meets the Tin Man when he goes to Broadway.
He does. Wouldn't you know it? So Gladys Hurlbut, who we talked about, who discovers Sharkey at a small fair at the Woodstock Library Fair, gets Sharkey involved in this Broadway production. And who's the star? Jack Haley.
Yep.
And Jack Haley's fresh off of filming The Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
in which he was the Tin Man.
Yeah.
So Oz is still in first-run theaters, and Haley goes from Hollywood to Broadway, and who's he acting alongside of? Sharkey the Seal.
Okay. Abbott and Costello. I know those are old movies. I get it. Did you ever see the one with the mummy? Oh, God. I mean, we were kids, but it was funny then, and it still is now. Was the fat one Costello?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, he was Lou, and Bud was the tall,
Right.
serious one,
The
right?
straight man, right.
And Sharkey was in the movie Pardon My Sarong.
Correct.
He's looking right there at Costello.
That was a really fun part of the book to research and write about. So that comes after Sharkey's career. Is this book, although it's nonfiction, it oftentimes it reads like fiction. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
No.
So Sharkey goes from Broadway, and within a couple years he's in Hollywood. And who's he working with? The hottest comedy team in the world.
Don't they do that thing? My father mentioned.
Oh,
Who's on first?
Who's on first? Yeah.
No, what's on?
Who's on first? Right.
What's on?
I don't know who's on second. Right. They've got. It's a play. The whole thing's a play on words. Right. It's a lot of people our age.
Yeah, I
Very
know my
familiar with
father
it.
talked about it. We're talking with Gary Bohan Jr., and he is the author of Sharkey. It's a true story. When sea lions were stars of show business, 1907 to 1958. Gary, how can they reach you and get your book?
They can go to my website at garybohan.com, GaryBohan.com. And if you go to my website, right at the home page, it's got all sorts of book buying options. Of course, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Then I've got a link to IndieBound, which tells you where you punch in your zip code, and it gives you local bookstores where you can buy the book as well. So it's out there and readily available.
Are you going to be appearing anywhere coming up?
Well, I'm going to be on a podcast, and that's going to be taped in a couple of weeks. That'll be in upstate New York, my hometown.
Is that near that? What is that? Is that anywhere near Bard College where you were?
It is. Yeah, Bard is right across the Hudson from where I grew up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up in Kingston,
Yeah.
which is where Sharkey was trained. And Bard, I think Bard is in, I'm going to say Red Hook, if I'm not mistaken, which is right across the
Were you near
the Rhine-
Syracuse?
Now Syracuse, not so much.
so
I mean,
much.
upstate New York is a big place.
Yeah.
Um,
There's another college up there. I want to say it starts with a B. Not just Bard. I thought there was another one. I guess not. This really interested me on page 134. He was making fun of Hitler, thank God. He got up there and he was mimicking this sea lion. Seal got up and mimicked Hitler's salute.
yes, that.
Woo!
That was just another. So we're kind of moving in chronological order through the book as we talk about it. So yeah, as we get into World War II, and it was very, very common for celebrities and even cartoon characters to mock
Yeah.
our enemies. And so my great-grandfather, Mark Hewling, worked up a skit with Sharkey delivering a radio address, and he would spew this very nonsensical but very human-like utterances.
Yeah.
And so he'd get up to the mic, throw up his right flipper, and spew this nonsensical gabble, and the crowds ate it up.
Oh, yeah.
Ate it up.
Definitely. Where was it now he did this?
So he did it in movie palaces
Yeah.
all across the country. Movies were so big in the 1940s, especially during the World War II era. So you had these movie palaces that would seat thousands of people, and they'd clear the house 3, 4, 5 times a day. But before the showing of a movie, there'd be a stage show
Yeah.
with A-list entertainers, and Sharkey was doing all of the movie palaces. Radio City Music Hall
Been
was
there with my parents.
that was probably the most famous.
Yeah.
And
I read about that. He was right in Radio City.
yeah, he did Radio City many times.
Yeah.
Sharkey did.
Remember the Rockettes? I was a little kid, and Mom and Dad would take us there for Christmas show. The animals would go across the stage, the camels, and then my father, of course, loved the Rockettes.
Right.
I remember, I put up with it. I was a little like, oh, can we go home? But, I remember that very much.
So Sharkey, they would often do that, like for the Christmas Spectacular, they'd have the live nativity scene and all that. But when Sharkey, when he worked at Radio City, he was the star. So he was the star of the stage show for 2 Christmas Spectaculars. And
I don't remember.
now that was in the 40s, mind
No,
you.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't.
That was in the 40s.
How old was he exactly when he died? That seal.
Sharkey was about 23 years old, 24 years old when he died.
Is that unusual for a seal?
That's about right for seals, for California sea lions in captivity. In captivity, they actually live a little bit longer than in their natural habitat because they don't have to fend off predators, for example. So yeah, mid-20s is about average.
Where did he live? I mean, was he adopted as a baby seal from a zoo?
No. There was a sea lion supplier named Captain George McGuire.
Sounds like breeding. A breeder.
No, he used to go out in the wild.
And he'd get him.
And him and his 2 assistants, and he did it for decades. And he supplied on the top of his stationery was "I supply the world with sea lions," and he truly did.
Yeah.
And so and I write about that in the book.
Yeah.
Now it's something that wouldn't happen today, and is largely falling out of favor. But I didn't want to avoid writing about that topic in the book, so I get right into it. There's several pages on Captain McGuire, and when he fancied himself a talent scout. He had all these metrics, and he wanted barkers and the shape of their nose and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
And so he singled out Sharkey as one of his top picks.
Did your great-grandfather own Sharkey? Did he buy him from like that?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay, so he bought him.
That's
and he owned it, but where did your great-grandfather keep him? Swimming pool?
He built a facility, and it was rather huge.
Yeah.
And so it was a training facility. It was also a performance facility. It had bleacher seating for about 200 people.
Yeah.
It had a big swimming pool in the middle.
Yeah.
And he had classrooms where he would teach the SEALs. He had dormitories with smaller pools.
There were more seals there, right?
Oh yes, there was upwards of, during the 1920s, when my great-grandfather Mark Hewling was with Ringling Brothers, at one point he had 20 California sea lions at the same time in this facility.
Seeing all those right near their house, right?
Oh, he was the preferred customer at the fish market, let me tell you.
And this was right at your great-great-grandfather?
Well, no, he didn't live there. So it was a separate facility, just for the seals. And like I said, there was in the second facility he built, which was even bigger. That had the performance venues. It had private tutoring rooms. It had a workshop where he built his props.
College. It was like a college.
It had a kitchen area.
Yeah.
And it had the tanks, the individual resting tanks, and the dormitories, and it was a rather elaborate institution.
Have you been up there to see it where it was?
Well, by the time I came of age, it had already been leveled. It had been raised.
But have you got pictures of it, though?
I do. Yeah. Okay. Fortunately, I've got pictures.
Was it big?
It was huge. Yeah.
Sounds like dormitories for seals.
Dormitories for seals.
I suppose they didn't get free college admission, right?
Well,
A fish, here's a fish.
He called it, and the press ate it up. He called his facility Seal College, and there would complete. So when the seals when they would finish their training, there would be a graduation ceremony.
Cap and gown.
Cap and gown.
And a fish.
And of course, and a diploma. They'd be clenching their diploma. And I've got all sorts of pictures of that. It's
I might have been happier there than at the college I went to. I mean, I would just to get, just have fun. I go, that would be fun rather than going to math class.
So they were all college educated, and they were all graduates of Seal College.
How did Ed Sullivan find out about him?
Oh, that's a great question. And remember, we were talking about the movie palaces.
Yeah.
Well, Ed Sullivan, we all know him as from the Ed Sullivan Show. But what I come to find out, he was a newspaper columnist with the Daily News, and it was a syndicated column, Little Old New York, that was very, very popular. Yeah. He was also impresario at Lowe's flagship theater, Lowe's State, right in Times Square on Broadway.
Did that become the Ed Sullivan Theater?
No. There's a whole other story that goes along with that. That's actually in my book. Yeah. But anyway, Ed Sullivan had hired Sharkey because Sharkey was doing all the biggest movie palaces, and Lowe's State was right up there with the Roxy, you had in New York City, you had Radio City Music Hall, the Roxy, and Lowe's State. They were all very comparable in the 40s.
Look at the St. James. That was pretty. The St. James.
There was so many of them. But I mean, it's mind-boggling how many of these movie palaces there were, and even in some of the smaller cities, you'd have it wouldn't be the 6,000 seater that Radio City Music Hall was, but in a small town or city, you might have a 2,000 seater. And so anyway, back to your question, Ed Sullivan had worked with Sharkey several times as part of his stage show at the Lowe's State Theater Movie Palace. So when Sullivan transitioned to TV, it was only natural because the TV shows back then were really an extension of these stage shows, which was an extension of vaudeville. Yeah. And so a lot of the early television shows that we know and love are really variety shows that had a vaudevillian type format with vaudevillians, of which Sharkey was one. So
they would have to pay your great-grandfather to bring Sharkey. Mm-hmm. Did he do okay financially?
He did. He did quite well. And in today's dollars, just adjusting to today's dollars, Sharkey, if you wanted him just for, he would do private parties, Sharkey would.
Cool.
Including he would do the Waldorf Astoria.
Yeah.
The most famous function room in the world, right? So if you wanted him at the Waldorf, it was about $10,000 for a private show.
Back then, that was probably a whole lot.
I'm adjusting. Yeah. Now, if you wanted him, let's say, for a week at one of these movie palaces, in today's dollars, you'd be talking about $30,000 for the week.
I wonder what made your great-grandfather so interested in seals. I wonder how he got that way.
him and two of his brothers, they really just stumbled upon it. They grew up on a farm in upstate New York, 300-acre family farm, and my great-grandfather actually wanted to become an electrician, and so he was on his way to. He lived near Buffalo, so on his way he visited with a family friend, and I think it was his uncle's wife's brother, if I've got that right. And this family friend turned out to be this world-renowned SEAL trainer. In fact, the first SEAL trainer in North America, just by happenstance.
Yeah.
And he offered jobs, this SEAL trainer, to my great-grandfather and his two brothers. They were young. My great-grandfather, Mark Hewling, he was 23.
Yeah.
And he became an assistant SEAL trainer, and the rest, as they say, is history.
I think lost count. Is it at least 3 owners of of Sharkey after your great grandfather died?
Right. So after my great grandfather's second wife took over the business, but as far as the trainers go, there were 2 trainers.
Yeah.
My grandfather, Lou Bohan, and another fellow named Billy Rowe.
Okay.
And so they took over the act after my great-grandfather died in 1951.
You think Sharkey, they say animals clue in when people pass away. Did it affect Sharkey at all?
I even bring it up in the book, and I'm going to quote verbatim, if not very close to what I wrote in the book. Tempting as it may be to speculate, Sharkey's reaction to Mark Hewling's death is unrecorded, so I didn't want to even speculate. But I know that Mark and Sharkey were extremely close, and you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it when you watch them perform.
Yeah.
It just jumps right off the screen, and you can read about it in his writings. And it's Mark Hewling had a fondness for all of his sea lions, but none more than his prodigy Sharkey.
Well, Mark came after your great grandfather, right?
Well, Mark Hewling is my great grandfather.
But after him
was Lou, my grandfather.
Lou, okay. Yeah. This may sound like an odd question, but on the headstone, your grandfather's, is there any mention of?
Oh, no.
No, nothing like no.
No.
You never know. People sometimes get so attached to their animals that they include it.
Yeah, no, it's a funny thing that, like I was saying earlier on, my family just, I don't think they weren't, they just didn't think it was much. My father, now keep in mind, obviously there's no internet back then in the 1950s when my dad's growing up as a teenager, and his father and his grandfather, they go off for a week or a month or a couple months, and they come back. And both my great grandfather and grandfather, the 2 SEAL trainers in the family, they were very modest. Because I asked my dad that, I said, and he said, if you were around Mark Hewling or Lou Bohan, you wouldn't even know they had just done the Ed Sullivan Show. They were just
very modest,
totally low key about it, and so I think it probably rubbed off on my teenage father at the time.
Yeah.
And he just figured. And then when I start dragging the stuff out of the woodwork, saying, "Do you know that they did this? Do you know that they did that? Do you know they were on that show?" Even my dad, who grew up with it, he's like, "Really?"
He didn't know.
He knew that they had done Sullivan. But some of the other, I said, well, do you know that they were on the Comedy Hour with Bob Hope? Do you know that? And I just write the Steve Allen Show, and Texaco Star Theater with Milton Berle, and I'm rattling off all these shows. Sid Caesar, Imogene Coca. Do you know they were on television with all these people? Arthur Godfrey was another big name in the 50s. I said, do you know that Sharkey was on all of these television shows? I didn't know that.
He had a TV, your dad.
Well, not until
40s?
No. It's television came of age. Television's breakout year was 1948. There can be no disputing that. That was World War II had ended, and that's when television came of age. 1948. Now my dad, because I asked him that very question,
Yeah.
I don't think it's either 1954 or 1955 when their family got their first TV, and it was this small little TV.
Yeah.
And I said, did you, because I just asked him this within the past year or so, I said, did you ever see Sharkey on TV? He
Yeah.
said, yeah, I saw him once, but it was really grainy, and, you know, so
You
it
know,
just...
this reminds me. Oh, I guess I'm glad I'm not alone. My great-great-grandfather was the founder of the Jocelyn rifle in the Civil War, and the United States government would buy his rifles to give to the men up in this area. I didn't hear one word about this famous man growing. I found out
Same
about
thing.
it. Yeah, years later. I'm thinking, is there something wrong with him? That's what keeps going through my mind. Is there something wrong?
Right, it's...
Gary, how can they reach you?
I can be reached on my website at garybohan.com, GaryBohan.com. And if you go to my website, it's got contact information if you want to email me. There's a whole bunch of, there's some clips on there, links to my social media sites, and of course there's all different ways that you can buy my book, Sharkey, When Sea Lions Were Stars of Show Business. So if you've liked this conversation, please stop on by and check out my website.
How about your daughter? Is she your only child?
No, I've got 3 daughters. So my youngest was on your show.
That's right.
She had written a book, and when she was in 5th grade, and she's now going to be a senior in
What do they think of
college.
Sharkey, the book? What do they think of this book? They always love it.
They're getting a kick out of it.
Did they ever say to you, Dad, can we get a pet seal?
No.
Funny, when I was a little girl, we had a kiddie pool for me, and it was a seal, a little tube. It was a seal,
Right,
black
right.
seal, and we called it Snooty.
Oh?
I remember it. Very good. Gary, you got another book coming up?
Well, no. In fact, my next project is a film documentary. So I've got a filmmaker that has contacted me, and he's very interested in doing a film, a documentary style on Sharkey. So we're in the midst of conceiving that and taking
Yes.
that to fruition.
Oh, that should be great. That should be really good. Well, if you're going to have enough, if the film comes out, let me know. We're going to talk about that. And if you do write another book, we'll get you one for that too. Go downstairs to the Upton Town Library, borrow a book of Sharkey, and then it's online. It's in the bookstores. Is it in Barnes and Noble?
It's in a lot of bookstores. I'm not sure which bookstores it's in or not in hard copy, but you can certainly order them from any bookstore.
Yeah.
And I know it's in some bookstores. It's in stock.
Good. That's great. And if you'd like to have Gary come and speak and give a presentation on his book,
Absolutely.
contact him. We'll see you next time. He'll be my guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.